Welcome everybody. I'm Erica Fritz from Yoga Hub, and I'm a yoga and meditation teacher and Ayurvedic health counselor. And I wanted to lead you through, a short, roughly 30-minute guided meditation and relaxation breathing technique today. You don't really need anything in particular, just find a comfortable seat. Okay, and that doesn't have to be on the floor, cross-legged or anything. If you're sitting up in a chair, just make sure that you are sitting right on top of your sit bones. So the bowl of your pelvis is neither spilling forwards and compressing the low back or spilling backwards and rounding the low back. Both can, result in some low back discomfort. So find your sit bones. Legs uncrossed here, preferably both feet flat on the floor, so you might have to adjust the height of the chair if that's possible. And then you draw the shoulders back over the hips. Okay. And it's a subtle action, but once the shoulders are stacked over the hips, you're going to feel this kind of natural corseting of the deep abdominal muscles, right around the spine, around the organs. And then ears in line with the shoulders. Okay, so the head is not pitching forward or cocked to one side. Slight drop of the chin to lengthen through the back of the neck, creating some space in that occipital ridge. And then either close your eyes all together or just look at a single spot down the tip of the nose. If you're keeping the eyes open, keep your focus soft, right? So you're aware of your peripheral vision. Okay. And if at any time during the meditation you start to feel sleepy, just know that you can open the eyes, you can adjust the posture, you can stand up, okay? Right? As we know, I think more and more, the breath affects the nervous system, right? So, somewhere between like 30 and 14 or so hertz is the beta waves, right? So at the higher end of that spectrum, triggers more of that sympathetic nervous system response, right? The kind of fight or flight response. At the lower end of the spectrum, still a conscious state, but more the parasympathetic nervous system response of rest and digest, so that's the calming pattern of breath. And I'll talk a little bit more about how long the breaths have to be and whatnot to make this shift between the two. Right? Anything kind of lower than that hertz, you're entering states of meditation, okay, or yoga nidra, eventually actual unconscious sleep. Okay. So readdress the posture here, root down through the sit bones, energetically pull up through the crown of the head, and then begin just by noticing the things around you. Okay, start with your senses, your ears, what do you hear? Which sound is the farthest? And which sound the closest? And then even though the eyes might be closed, can you see any residual light or form behind the lids? You might even draw the eyes up towards the center of the forehead above the eyebrows. And just see if anything changes. You might see some colors. No strain in the eyes though. And there might be a particular scent wafting through the air or a taste on the tongue. notice the skin. The skin is the largest sensory organ. It gives us a lot of data. Notice the temperature of the room. Any movement of air. Texture of your clothing. And any variations in the weight or pressure of the parts of the body touching something solid. Right, which part is heaviest? And which part the lightest? Now you also have a sixth sense. That's your interoception, and that is what's happening inside of the body. So scan head to toes, just notice whatever you notice going on internally. And the brain just evolutionarily tends towards a negative bias. So you might notice first things that are uncomfortable. But try to also identify parts of the body or the experience that are pleasurable, or at least acknowledge neutrality. Bring your attention to your breath just around the rims of the nostrils and the upper lip. No need to change anything about the breath just yet. The breath, like your sense organs, are gateways to the mind. That boundary between the external environment and your internal world. So just follow its natural flow. What's the pace? The depth. Right, if you notice the breath only in the chest or up in the head, that is one sign of anxiety, right? The shallow or rapid breathing. Notice the texture of the breath, if the sinuses are at all dry or congested. Which nostril is clearer? Right, and yoga, subtle yoga philosophy, the left nostril is connected to the right hemisphere of the brain, and vice versa, right nostril connected to the left. Your solar and lunar channels. Okay, and then as you follow the flow from the nose to the throat to the lungs inflate, the diaphragm presses down, so the belly should also inflate. Okay? And we either consciously or unconsciously tend to hold a lot of stress in the belly. Right? So consciously soften the muscles of the abdomen. No vanity here, just let it kind of all relax out. All right, if you're constantly tense in the gut, that can affect all kinds of other aspects of your health, right? Digestion, elimination. Okay. And if you need a more kind of tactile feedback for the flow of breath, place your hands on the abdomen, right? One above, one below the navel. place the hands there in such a way though that you're not causing the shoulders to slump, the arms still hang right in the middle of the sides of the rib cage. Okay, and with each inhale, feel the belly fill right into the clothing, into your hands. On the exhale, gently draw the navel back towards the spine. So the belly shrinks away from hands, away from clothing. And just take a couple of cycles focusing on the belly. And honestly, it's not just the belly. The breath encircles the entire torso. So it's also the sides of the waist, the low back. And we are forward-facing creatures, so I know breathing into the low back might be a little bit more of an elusive concept. So you might take one of those hands into the small of the back and just see if you can actually feel how the tissues respond to a deep diaphragmatic breath. Now from the belly, draw the breath back up into the rib cage, and the rib cage in even a more pronounced fashion can really inflate in all directions. All right, so fill up front to back. Side to side, widen the breath. You'll feel the rib cage kind of puff out against the inner arms. And also bottom to top, you can feel the breath kind of fill all the way up into the armpits. And on the exhale, you deflate from the periphery back to the core. Now breathing into the belly is more of a relaxation breath. We already talked about when the breath is more up into the chest, it can trigger some senses of anxiety, up-regulating the nervous system. So if you do have hypertension or you are kind of struggling with anxious feelings today, keep the breath down in the lower parts, the lower 2/3. Otherwise, you might try filling up into the 3 parts from belly to ribs to chest. Feel the collarbones lift and separate. Exhale from chest to ribs back to the belly. Okay, but remember we are 3-dimensional creatures. I mean, we're even 4-dimensional creatures. We're alive in time, right? And not just space. So breathe into the upper back and shoulders. See the breath swirling around the back of the heart. Keep the shoulders relaxed, right? If you are tensing the shoulders by the ears, that's a sign that you are forcing the breath. Remember that breath is automatic, right? You don't have to think about it. You don't have to exert a whole lot of effort, right? The body does it unconsciously, but once you are able to be more conscious of the breath, you can see it as a tool to help regulate the nervous system. And it's a really handy tool because it's with you all the time. You don't need some fancy accoutrement to meditate or to do breath work. Right? You carry that knowledge, you carry the source with you all the time. You just have to remember that it's there for you to use. You can visualize the breath flowing up through the back of the neck, filling up the base of the skull. But keep the throat and the jaw relaxed. And keep a little space between the rows of teeth. You can place the tip of the tongue right behind the rim of the upper teeth, but not touching. And soften the tongue at the base of the throat. Okay, then we'll begin to incorporate some retention between the breaths. Whatever works to your capacity. Right, so try just holding the top of the inhale for a few moments, full capacity of the lungs, before you exhale. And likewise, pause for a few moments at the bottom of the exhale. Allow the breath time to fully expel. Hold there on empty. Before you inhale again. And these spaces between the breaths are just as important as the breaths themselves. Not only to regulate the nervous system, but just symbolically, it's a reminder that everything is always in a state of flux. You know, can't step into the same river twice. So it's good to be reminded that, you know, everything is temporary. Now, without causing any force or strain here, begin to count the length of the breath. Okay? And kind of have like a pretty steady metronome rhythm here. And a count, maybe a 4 or 6, right? Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Keep going with just the smooth inhale and the exhale, counting. Now, if you feel like your capacity is beyond 4, try 6. All right, I spoke earlier about kind of the brain waves and like kind of beta brain waves. And kind of if you're hanging out in the space, you know, kind of that rhythmic 4 to 6 count of breath, you're still probably going to be pretty upregulated, right? Pretty alert, pretty energized, right? And in the positive connotations, or again, it might be anxious kind of flight or fight response in the kind of shadow negative side. Okay, so the longer you can make the breath, the calmer, like the more the brain waves settle into that state of relaxation. So a count of maybe 8 or 10, which might not be your capacity at this point, right? It is a practice after all. And you can, with some, conscious practice, increase the capacity of your lungs. Even a lay person, you don't have to be an opera singer or anything like that. Just, use the tools of yoga. Okay, now after a couple of rounds of just that smooth inhale and exhale, come back to incorporating some retention between the breaths, okay? Same count, right? So inhale, 2, 3, 4, pause, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, pause, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. Continue with your own count. And again, if you're working beyond the count of 4, go for it. It's a self-paced, self-regulated practice. And this is a balanced breath. This is like a sama. Sama means balance in Sanskrit, right? Meaning to balance the nervous system, right? The inhale breath and the hold, the retention, the kumbhaka, we call it in Sanskrit, of the breath, is more upregulating to the nervous system. Right? Makes the heart beat a little faster. Right? Likewise, the exhale and the space after the exhale calms you down, makes your heart beat a little slower, right? And a healthy heart will respond to the breath in this way. Okay? In Ayurveda and the Indian medical system, the respiratory system and the circulatory system are not viewed as two systems. They are the one and the same. Give you a few moments of silence here just to focus on your internal rhythm of breath. Now the counting is also quite pacifying for the mind. It gives the part of the mind that always wants to be doing and thinking something to focus on. But if you notice that the mind starts to drift, which it invariably will do, that's just the nature of the manas, the mind. The idea of meditation is to notice that's what's happened, right? So you use this more metacognitive part of the brain, your buddhi, your intellect, to notice that other part of the mind has wandered off, and then you bring it back. You bring it back to breath. Right? Remember, the breath is always in the present moment. Okay? The mind can be in the past, in the future, right? Worrying, remembering, fantasizing, planning, plotting. The mind has all sorts of functions. But if you want to tap into a deep and internal peace and calm and balance, right, your true nature, have the object of your attention be the breath, moment by moment, in the present. And that other stuff, like the sense stuff, your sounds and your tactile sensations and, smells and tastes, sights, are all still there, but can they be in the background? Peripheral awareness is expansive. It kind of holds all that data at once. Right? But the mind has an incredible capacity to be both expansive and minute at once. So peripheral awareness can expand, but your active attention can be focused on the breath simultaneously. Okay, let's take a few more cycles. Notice the effect that the breath is having on the body and the mind. Hopefully you feel at this point a little more balanced than when you began. Right? Striving for a calm but alert mindset. Okay, complete this last exhale, and then let go of all thought of the breath, right? Return to just automatic flow. Let's bring the hands up to the heart here and set an intention for the rest of your day. All right, you can consider what tools you learned that you can take with you. Take the thumbs from the heart up to the head, connecting your heart and mind. And it's been my pleasure to guide you through this breathing practice today. I recommend taking some time, like setting some time and space up for yourself, because you're not going to find time, right? That's everyone's excuse, like, oh, I'm too busy to meditate. I'm like, no, that's exactly when you should be meditating and breathing the most, is when you're busiest. So you got to set up a time. Put it in the calendar, set an alarm, try to be as consistent in your routine as possible. So try to, do it the same time every day. First thing in the morning is a great way to just, have a, get a proper mindset to approach the rest of your day. Before you go to bed, also a really good time to do it, to kind of clear out all the, accumulated stress of the day. Okay, but again, you work with whatever goal seems reasonable to you. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 1 minute, but try to be consistent about it and see if you notice the effects that it has on your ability to cope with stress, to put a little bit of space between the stimulus of discomfort, right, either physical or emotional or mental discomfort, and your reactions to them. Okay, more space between the breath, more space between the thoughts. The calmer, the happier you're gonna be. Okay. I'll see you next time if you are interested in the second video here. This is preparatory work. Just being able to breathe, with the diaphragm is preparatory to any other future pranayama or breath work. In the next video, I'll be taking you through Nadi Shodhana, which is an alternate nostril breathing technique. Okay, thank you.